So as we covered in the last video, we can actually explode our blocks in order to make them instances and not connected to the other blocks. And by doing that, and how we do that is by using the explode command. So the explode command, okay, the alias is X, okay, or you can type in explode, or it's located up here under your modify tools. So if I type in explode, and I select my block object and hit enter, okay, you can see that it's exploded into the separate objects and it's no longer connected to the rest of my objects. Now, blocks are exclusive to your drawing if they're created in your drawing. So many firms have a block library that everyone has access to if you generally use the same blocks, the same fixtures, the same furniture, etc. In all drawings. So it's not unwise, okay, in fact it's very wise to start to build a block library so you don't have to redraw these over and over and over again. So you can also export parts of your drawing to an external file for further use as a block file to be inserted into other drawings. Okay, so the command for this, in order to take this information, okay, and it doesn't have to be a block, it really should be the original block objects, because if I create a block from a block, okay, you're going to have to explode it and explode it and explode it in order to get the original objects back. Okay, so this is something that I would want to do with my original objects. So this command is using the W block, okay, or what's called the write block. So if I type in W block, okay, what comes up is a similar dialog to the block creation dialog. So basically what it allows us to do is to select our source, which is objects, okay, and as we know, that's any shape that's created by AutoCAD. We're going to pick our base point again, okay, as our point of insertion, so I'm going to specify my center point, and I'm going to select my objects and hit enter. Now down below, what we're doing is we're essentially exporting this information to a file, so I'm going to find and locate it where I want to save it. Okay, and the issue with this is that it creates, every time it creates a write block, it creates it with the name new block. Okay, so that's definitely something that I want to change. So I'm going to click on the bottom, or the button that's all the way to the right, and I'm going to, I can create a folder. So I'm going to create a new folder. It should be at the bottom. I'm going to rename this AutoCAD blocks. I'm going to open that up, and I'm going to save this chair, okay, this chair here, as round chair, and hit OK. Okay, so what it did is there's this window that popped up, and essentially nothing happened. Okay, and that's because what happened is that I took this information and I saved it into a write block, which is essentially just a separate AutoCAD file. So if I go to open up that file, okay, so if I go to my desktop where I created my blocks folder, I find my AutoCAD blocks, and I find my round chair, okay, what it did is save that information to a separate file, and you can see that these are all the original block objects. Okay, so I can change this file, okay, and I can insert this file as a block. So if I exit out of that file, okay, and I go to insert, as we did before in the last video, and I go to browse, okay, because right now, well actually, this round chair, I'm going to name it round chair 2 just to differentiate it from my round chair block that I already have, okay, and that could cause some problems, so this is where I want to be, mindful of that. So I'm going to go to my desktop, and I'm going to change that name. I'm going to rename that round chair 2. Okay, and get out of that. Okay, so all I did was change the file name where it's located on my desktop. Now when I go to insert, okay, I'm going to go to browse, and I'm going to find where I saved that. Desktop. Okay, AutoCAD blocks, round chair 2. It's going to recognize that. I'm going to hit OK, and it'll insert that round chair 2 as a block. Okay, and so now when I select it, it's one block, and it's on the structural layer, which is my current layer, so I'm going to select that and I'm going to change that to my furniture plant. Or sorry, my furniture layer. And it's going to take on those properties. Now keep in mind that these two are separate from each other. Okay, this is my round chair, this is my round chair too. So if I double click on that and go into my block editor and take away any of this, save it, close the block editor and save the changes. Okay, you can see that they all changed except for this, because this is a different block and these guys are exploded blocks, so they're not going to change. Okay, so if again I open up my round chair 2 and let's say I change it and save it, okay, right now it's fine, but when I go to insert it again, I'm going to hit OK. Nothing happens when I save and hit OK. Okay, and that's because what I need to do is if I go to insert, if I go to browse again, so even though it's in there, it's not recognizing those changes. So what I have to do is I have to go to browse, go to round chair 2, hit OK, and then it'll ask me if I want to redefine the block. And that basically means that it's already in the file, and because there's changes that are made, it wants to know if I want to make those changes to all of those blocks. So I'm going to hit redefine block, and now it'll change those, okay, and it'll insert the one that I was inserting from my block insert, okay, and now I can match the properties to those guys. Okay, now what happens is that a lot of times, you know, we most of the time we want to create our own custom blocks. Okay, however, AutoCAD has what's called the Design Center, and essentially the Design Center is a resource for us in order to get some blocks that are already pre-programmed into AutoCAD. So to access the Design Center, if you do hold down the Control button and hit 2, okay, and it might take a little bit to load because it's my first time accessing it. These are actually a lot of the blocks that AutoCAD will have in there. So what I want to do is I want to, off to the left-hand side, I want to go to AutoCAD 2016, and I want to go to, let's say, sample ENUS. Okay, so sample ENUS Design Center. And then we can see that these are some of the blocks that AutoCAD has stored for us. So these are groups of blocks, and you can have, let's see, a home space planner, there's a house designer, kitchens, etc. So if I want to use this, okay, all I have to do is click and drag it into my file. Okay, and then just click and hit enter, enter, and enter, okay, to get out of that. And what this does is it inserts a block of blocks. Okay, and this is what happens when you create a block out of multiple blocks, is that you have to explode that block. Okay, and now you can see that now you have individual blocks that you can start to use. Okay, if you don't want to use all of them and you only want to use one of them, okay, or a couple of them, if I go back into my Design Center and if I double click on that grouping and go to blocks, okay, you can see that these are the individual blocks that are located within that grouping. So I can click and again drag that block into my file and it'll set it there. Okay, so this is a queen size bed, and now I can start to use that for space planning. Okay, and now that what you'll see is that if I go to my block list, you can see it here. Okay, but you can also better see it if I double click on one of these guys to pretend like I'm editing that. You can see that now these are all the blocks that are in my file. Okay, and the only way to get rid of them is purging, but we're not going to cover purging yet because purging also purges out layers too that are not in use, and we're going to use our layers as we go, so we're not going to purge just yet.